Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome to a very special online event today. It's called Discover the Art of Conscious Dying, How Facing Your Own Mortality Can Free You to Live Your Best Life and Support Others in Their Transitions. My name is Stephen Dunnan. I'm the founder and president of the Shift Network, and we've been in a deeper exploration in recent years around the whole journey of conscious dying and really making this an opportunity, a liberation, a healing for all of us, since it's a transition that everyone faces and is often a source of great fear, and yet it can be a portal into new possibilities. And we're going to get to explore this with a really exciting pioneer in this field who is really deep in the heart and soul of it. Her name is Tarron Estes. She's the founder and CEO of the Conscious Dying Institute, and we're going to explore what conscious dying is and how we can live more gracefully as a result of embracing that. So, Tarron, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you. That was a great prelude. Beautifully said. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, well,
Thank you.
thank you. Well, we're super excited to have you here. You've been on our radar for a few years when we started doing programming around this. And so really exciting. It's exciting that you're now with us and also offering this brand new program that we're excited about called The Art of Conscious Dying. We'll share more about that in towards the end of the hour. So, Taryn, I think in talking about this subject, it's probably always going to be important to talk about your own journey and what led you to focus on the whole topic of conscious dying and really realizing why this is such an important portal for people to really address with their full heart and soul.
Thank you. I just want to say that our own personal journeys are the things that inspire us most. And I'm saying this about students who have graduated from the Institute and become end-of-life doulas. Um, it's like it's a soul's call. It's very different than needing a job and going out and searching for a job, and because it's a spiritual path. And so my journey with this began when I was 3 or 4 years old with my mother, who was just a native, natural end of life caregiver for people who were sick and ill in a really tiny town that I grew up in. And I went with her and was bedside a lot with her in the hospital then, where, a lot of people usually died, or at home where they were dying or sick. And witnessing, like the the full 360 of the lives, and the preparation, and from the beginning of critical care until after death in the funeral home, was something that became really natural for me. And I it just was a part of life. So that touched me very deeply. And I saw my mother, giving healing care to the body for, many years after that. And then as I moved on into my life, I became attracted to facilitation and coaching and therapeutic practices. And one of them was facilitating a journey for a large long-term care company that included their desire to look at the vision map that they were going to hold for the next 5 years, and it didn't include death. And there was like, and it wasn't my role to say, well, okay, now we need to talk about death. It's not on the chart. But I did finally, in one particular region, ask, what do you guys do about dying, people in your nursing homes? Because most people do stay there through the end of life. And they said, oh, no, we don't talk about death. So when that journey with that particular client was over, I was with my colleagues. We were going to the airport, and one of my colleagues says to me, well, what are you going to do after this? And in that moment, I really did hear a God-given purpose, and it was, I'm going to do whatever I can to make death better. And it took a while after that before I actualized something, and that was the beginning of the Conscious Dying Institute. My background has a lot of transformational, body-oriented group work as a student for myself, and that all translated into me being able to work with both individuals and families and groups. And when I first started the Institute, I was doing on-site work with groups, mostly women, who were interested in becoming a doula. And for me, becoming anything begins with the transformation of self and soul and spirit. And so most of the classes that I do, um, the wrap around a topic of end of life and something that there's a learning, how to do this with. But it first starts with how the individual um, receives that for their own life, for their own
Hmm.
personal transformation.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for saying yes to this whole journey. And when you said that they don't talk about death, it sort of struck me that that's sort of like our whole cultural philosophy. I get ads almost every day in my Facebook feed for this "Don't Die" summit, and it's like everything is just oriented around avoiding death as long as possible, avoiding talking about it. How do you start to pivot that and really open up a meaningful, engaged conversation, relationship with death?
Um, I can roll that back into, how I started doing it as a facilitator. I I actually became the person, probably the first person on like the healthcare circuit to do speaking engagements on death. And at that point in time, it was like, I don't know, 1997, 98, something like that. And people were just, oh, like they'd never heard of death before. And so I had a few top, moments the in speaking engagements, and then they just fall off. It's like, what did I just hear? Oh, let's move on. And so
Not necessarily great for career advancement.
It wasn't, it's like I thought, oh, I'm finally here. I've got traction. It's going to happen. And it was like making enough, headway and foothold in some common, some existing environment that I could just walk, like here are my courses, and it would be awesome for your community to take these in and let me train your nurses. And I tried that for a long time. And anyway, it finally resulted in me going, if I'm going to do the best thing I could do with the skills that I have, it's going to be doing retreats that I lead live with using the content that I have. And it took about 3 or 4 years for that to actually move into a viable, what's the word? Like revenue stream for me.
Hmm.
It's so harsh in the conversation that we're having. But I did, my background includes that I don't give up and that I knew enough about all of the elements of the things that needed to happen in order for this cause to move forward. And eventually, we reached about 5,000 people from 2013 until the end of 23, maybe. We completely reverted to online programs at the beginning of COVID, and they're all online now.
So let's jump off into some of what you've learned about how to sort of turn a dying process that we're in denial of to a conscious dying process that we can engage thoughtfully.
Thank you. Thank you. The preface this with conscious dying is not defined, like it's not a definition in Webster's, right? It's defined by individuals who we bring into that conversation and allow them to define what a conscious death is for themselves. And sometimes we don't even use the word conscious dying. We use a good death. What's the best death you could possibly imagine? And the way that I and we, as a group of students that I've graduates that we've trained, approach that is to support people to initiate, to know enough about themselves and what they want, what would be a good death for them, and to deepen in that, which is what the course is going to be about, so that they can initiate conversations about death, so that they can do things like be brave enough and courageous enough and clear enough that they could actually ask someone, like, well, what is your diagnosis? I know that you are not doing so well right now, but tell me about where you're at, and actually bring the conversation into humanity, like a humanly, just something that's human.
Hmm.
Like if I were dying and somebody wasn't asking me about where I'm at and how I'm doing and what I'm going through, I would just feel so alone, as do most people, because a lot of people don't want to talk about it. So talking about it and first understanding what it is for you and what you want, you know, as as if you have 3 months to live,
Hmm.
what would you prioritize in your life if you had 3 months to live?
Hmm.
So I'm just like, may I ask you that question? If you knew right now, just the way that you are, the health that you are, the age that you are, your whole life situation, and you suddenly found out today, tomorrow, that you have 3 months to live, what would you prioritize?
Definitely time with my girls. I've 5-year-old and 7-year-old for sure. And probably besides that, a lot of writing. So I gotta get my deeper thoughts out while I have time.
So, that's what you want. That's what you want right now, right?
Hmm.
So, what you know right now about what you would want if you had 3 months to live is what you would work on for your fulfillment in life now. So, instead of waiting until we have 3 months to live to work on that, or maybe you'd never hear about it until you really have 3 months to live, you get to do that. Most of the people I work with are healthy and thriving, or, are having a hard time. They've lost people. And so we get to go through this process that engages, the answers to questions about your last 3 months. What if you had 3 months to live in all of the domains of life? What are the priorities? And then they work through them and take action steps toward completing them.
That makes a lot of sense. And so you find there's something about like the 3 months to live versus a year. With a year, you still kind of procrastinate a bit?
Well, Stephen Levine, long ago, one of the real fathers of the conscious dying movement, wrote a book called 1 Year to Live. Do you remember that? Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
So that was a whole, process of taking people through a journey in 1 year of, what would you do in 1 year? And I don't think we have that much of an attention span left these days. People are so easily distracted and move really quickly. So I said, how about 3 months? I think people could, maybe we could manage that. So,
Great. And so what do you find that what is most common when people really shift that framework to a 3-month orientation? What kind of conversations open up and what kind of shifts in perspective?
family,
Hmm.
that's generally right at the top. So like with you, you've got young daughters, and I could imagine, I don't know you, I don't know your relationship with them, but I could imagine that you just want to play with them. You just want to like have a big time, cuddle up at night, hug them, kiss them, pour milk or soy milk or whatever in the morning and just be with them as much as you can.
Hmm.
Other people may have lingering conflicts, relational conflicts, in some way that they want to mend and heal before they die. Which means if you're like you are right now, or I'm like I am right now, in 3 months, if I have a relational conflict, I want to know what are the steps I can take to heal that. And it's not all within my control or your control to heal a relationship that needs mending, right? We can only do the best we can do. But so whether it's a relationship that needs it's not going well now and needs mending, or whether it's a relationship like with your children that is just adorable and enjoyable and yummy, most people want to focus on somebody or a lot of people that they love.
Mm-hmm. And what about the sort of the aspect of the completion or the, repair of old relationships? Share a little bit about how that can also be a really important part of the conscious dying process, is really making sure all the sort of emotional loose ends are tied up, if you will.
Oh, that's a great question. And we could talk about, like you could have asked me a question about spirituality, right?
Hmm.
And you didn't. You asked about the emotional aspect of it. And um, I, what I have seen and experienced in my journey with death is that the emotional component of who we are, um, whether we want to acknowledge or you believe that it has anything to do with our soul or our spirit, to me, it has to do with like this very, very, very deep um, part of my being that's connected to people. And I think at the end of the day, most of us are going to say, instead of my work or my car or how much money I have, they're going to probably choose in their friendships and their relationships, maybe even before their spiritual journey. But it doesn't matter. It's just healing emotionally is like if I look at all of the people that I've been with who are like really close to the end, 2 weeks to the end, let's just say, if they're not having a easy time letting go, it's because something isn't finished yet. And it doesn't take a whole lot if you're a doula or a friend. Usually someone outside the family, maybe all of the people who are really close, to know that my dad is really still struggling with his relationship with my brother. And how can we move that along?
Hmm.
And, you know, I can, at that point, my dad can't probably pick up the phone and call my brother. I can pick up the phone and call my brother. I can text my brother, my aunt and uncle, my cousins who he's more maybe, connected to, can call and say, is there any way you would be on the phone with dad and just say goodbye? And those kinds of things are the things that, whether we heal them or complete them before we die, or whether they come with us, it's I believe the alignment with our spiritual nature that they will still be healing
Hmm.
even after we pass. So we can kind of let go and, oh my goodness, my mom or my sister didn't heal that, and she wanted to, and there's healing can happen beyond the
Hmm.
last.
Hmm. Let's shift and talk a little bit more about, if you don't have an imminent death that's coming, but just the sort of relating to death consciously. How do you recommend that people start taking on a practice of relating to death even before there's any sort of impending quality to it?
Aw, that's a well, we're going to work with the practice for death, right? As the experiential of this program, would this be a good time for me to talk about that?
Sure. Yes, I think that'd be great.
All right. So, in and all of the, let's just say in many religions, or in some, but not all, or very few religions, do we find practices for dying. Now, there's some very esoteric practices for dying that are, wrapped in the more Eastern practices, but let's just talk about America. And most of the people here may not have had any um, opportunity, introduction to what to do, how to prepare yourself for death. It's like, well, I've never done it before. I don't know what to do about it. And there's something that came, a practice called, what I call the practice for death, is a wonderful meditation on if we do it regularly, once a week, something like that, that allows us to begin to let go and surrender. And the phrases inside this practice all relate to different aspects of life, in a poetic form that all of us, many of us can identify with at least one of the phrases as the phrase that touched us most. Like, my work is done, as an example, or I am free from suffering. And if we be with people and inquire about which phrase inside the practice for death had the most meaning, we can also see what the healing, that it's a healing remedy for overworking or suffering for a long time on something that was never able to complete. Or another phrase is, I release my body to the earth. I retrieve my consciousness from all worldly things. I just feel that for a minute.
Hmm.
I retrieve my consciousness from all worldly things. I relax into the source of my being. So right in there, if you want to look at it this way, points to so many of the afflictions that we have in this world that we live in as a modern contemporary society, and working with those as the medicine for, just going, oh, I relax into the source of my being. I retrieve my energy from all worldly things. And that's one way that we can prepare for a conscious death. Very intimate practice. And just like anything, like meditation of any type, it requires, it demands or commands or requires us to work with the practice. And it's, the best way that I find doing it is just, as in Shavasana, in the final, yoga pose of the practice, which is a surrendering into relaxation and calmness and death. Doing it in that particular posture on the floor, laying down with your arms, like really, really spread out and open, is it's just an amazing surrendering process, the whole thing of it.
Hmm. Beautiful. Do you want to take us through the full practice for death?
I'd love to. Thank you. So we're gonna leave this up on the screen so everyone can see it, and I'm going to ask everyone right now not to focus on the practice for death on the screen, but just listen as I go through the practice, and just do as much experience as much of this as you can right now. So close your eyes and relax as much as you can. I don't know, wherever you're sitting or laying or what you're doing, just be still for a moment. And know that when you hear this first phrase, I return to God, it's not, it can be, I return to consciousness. I return to the Holy Spirit. I return to spirit. I return to the universe, whatever that is for you. I'm just going to use the word God. Okay, so close your eyes and take a deep breath. I return to God. I release my body to the earth. I retrieve my energy from all worldly things. I relax into the source of my being. I relax into the source of my being. Death is my teacher. I have prepared for this moment all of my life. All teachings, all teachers converge for this departure. The truth of impermanence envelops me. I am free from suffering. I release my spirit to the light. I am forgiven. My work is done. I return to the light. So just stay with that for just, 30 seconds before we move on. Just feel the impact, whatever it is, of this meditation, these words, these phrases in your heart, soul, and body. And I'm going to move on now with the second part of the healing of this. Do you mind if I ask you personally the question so there's a direct response? Is that okay?
Yes, for me, my work is done is the one that has the greatest resonance or charge to it. It's interesting, like when the movie Gladiator, there was like some scene where he sort of was like kind of exhausted and kind of dying, and like that always really affected me really deeply. Like it's like I come here with a mission and I'm working, and then it's like, ah, my work is done. It's sort of like then it's time to release it back.
Yeah, it's like the final release,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And I'll speak for myself, like that one is very, very resonant for me. And um, I often need to have more of a closure at the end of the day, like these things are complete, it's a part of my work. My work isn't complete, but this day is done. And, at the end of life, that's a really important healing phrase. If that's what we've, for leaders and people who've come to the earth with a great mission and purpose, and are doing a lot of good service for a lot of people in a lot of different ways. It's a beautiful phrase.
Mm. So is the idea that you're really finding the phrase that has the most charge, if you will, for you, that have most emotional resonance, and then that's like the portal into what what you still need to work through, or is it more just like that's your sort of gateway into the deeper relationship?
Well, great questions. So the first part of what you said about the understanding, uh, paraphrasing, the healing remedy, it's like once you have that resonance and that impact that's particular with one phrase or a couple of phrases, then it's just like it points toward where your healing is, right? Like your work is done. So a
Hmm.
person who resonates with that is, a person who's probably working a lot and um, who needs to let go of work, if you will.
Hmm.
How do you respond to that? What I just said last?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is some way of my identity kind of wrapping around the sort of the doing of things in this world rather than just being here.
Yeah, and then that's so um, familiar and human for the time that we're living in, isn't it?
Hmm.
Yeah. So, and in terms of the last part that you said about the portal or just taking us further into the portal, I I'm not exactly sure. What did you mean by that?
I meant a little bit more. It's like a window of opportunity to open into something bigger or wider.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because as we're, holding on to that, I work. I'm a worker. I'm a doer. and when we have a portal, where there's an opening that we're not, where we're not in that particular thing, then there's possibly something else for us to experience that's a bigger life, I don't know, like a life experience that work has been keeping from us.
Hmm. So true. Well, I want to also spend a little time today getting your perspective on how we can help others. So it sounds like there's a piece that just has to do with working through our own relationship first, but then there's so many of us who are at one point or another going to be supporting somebody through a terminal illness, and really, what are some of your keys to doing that with grace?
Mm. The tendency to want to fix, to overcome the the tender and vulnerable space of not knowing what to do, when someone is terminally ill or critically ill, is just overwhelming for a lot of us. It's like, how
Hmm.
can I do something? What can I do? And it's a doing thing that we think we need to do. And it's really a being thing, for to be able to take a deep breath and just be with that person long enough for us to just feel the the emotional and spiritual and physical state of that person that we're with in the room, wherever we are. It's like, oh wow, I he's really in pain. It's physical pain, you know,
Hmm.
and being able to do something as practical as to let the healthcare providers know that there's not enough, pain management going on, and being able to, sit beside this person and take their hand, or, put your hand on their forehead, or, you know, just something so tender as putting your hands on someone's face and saying, "Are you in pain? What do you need?" So, it's like, let us not forget that toward the end of life, the physical body is going to be going through its high point of suffering, could be, might be. And the relational stuff is going to be at the, like all right there. And as a person being with someone who's dying, let's just say we're in the room and the family's there, or one person of the family is there, and we can ask them to say, is there anything you'd like to say to your husband right now that you haven't said, or anything you want him to know? And just doing like kind of interrupting the silence, but being with the silence.
Hmm.
There's there's this like there's this curtain kind of, and on one side of that curtain is all of the things that we wish we'd said that we didn't know how to say, or things we'd wish we'd done that we did do that we could have done. And on the other side of that curtain is, you know, living in the, living in a space where we can just, as the helping person, can either intuit. And if I had enough time right now, I'd say something about intuition that, breaks it down and just makes it so easy for all of us. But, it doesn't take a whole lot. It's not rocket science for me or you, Stephen, as a human being in the room with somebody else who's dying, to look and see what's going on with the family.
Mm-hmm.
You can take a pretty good guess. Instead of like being there and not speaking, or instead of being there and not sending up a prayer, or a solicitation for help in the situation, or asking a big bold question, it's like, maybe like, you have no idea what you're going to say is going to do in this environment, but you're going to say it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Those kinds of things. Making sure, if the person's really nearing death, that the people that they want to see are contacted.
Mm-hmm. So many of the things we've talked about have been sort of kind of the emotional completions and more practical presence. And wonder about some of the more metaphysical, spiritual kinds of perspectives on death, and like, do you see those as some of those kind of evasive of the moment or problematic, or when to bring those in a way that helps people kind of find perhaps a deeper meaning in going through this transition?
This is my best.
Hmm.
I think there's a very, very strong relationship between spiritual and emotional energy at
Mm-hmm.
the end of life. And it's important. You know, I can't imagine just asking someone, I can't imagine, like asking in some way, is there anything that you need spiritually? Do you need to hear a song? Do you need to hear something from a book, a poem? Uh, like, instead of asking the question directly, um, asking about the things that a spiritual um, urge or desire could be helped by.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it's more evocative rather than you're trying to program or give a prescription or something.
So I want to bring to mind this wonderful film called Dying Wish, which really demonstrates and shows an end of life experience for a one person who's dying, and their entire family and friendship circle. And it's a very real, um, private, intimate look into the lives of this person who has chosen actually to do um, to use VSED, voluntary cessation of eating and drinking as a way to move himself from pain into death.
Hmm.
And I highly recommend that people, become familiar with this film and watch it because it says so much, Stephen, about how do we help people who are
Hmm.
dying. It says
Uh,
so much about that. So many things, that talking about could never, ever, ever
hmm.
uh, touch on in the way this film does. So
Hmm.
it's Dying Wish, and I think it's dyingwish.org.
Hmm.
And
Well, that sounds truly beautiful and well worth viewing. Um, is there anything else that you just want to get across about shifting our whole relationship with dying in this time that we have together today? Just any sort of like key pivots that we can make so that we really see this as a deep opportunity rather than something to avoid.
uh, well, I mean, the thing we most avoid is to initiate conversations about death, right? So one of the biggest shifts we can make is to initiate a conversation about death. One of the other things that's the most important for us to do is to explore our own fears and desires and wishes about our own dying process, to come to terms with what we know about ourselves in that place and the possibility of having support and a way to, just dive into that instead of pulling away from it. The biggest thing we can do is move into it, even if it's just a little bit, rather than pulling away from it. The isolation that happens when someone's dying and the world in front of them doesn't say anything about it is profound.
Hmm.
It's one of the probably most piercing, poisoning, I'll just use that word, experience that can happen for someone who's dying is for somebody not to talk about it.
Hmm.
I guess it chills when I say that.
Hmm. Such an important message, and I think it really behooves all of us to embrace this. Is really, it is something we all share. Is a death in our futures and a death in the lives of those we love, and that if we can embrace that, that there's a great liberation and healing in that. So thank you. And I want to spend some time now talking about the groundbreaking program that we mentioned earlier today, which is called The Art of Conscious Dying that you're going to be teaching. The subtitle is Live Fully, Leave Gracefully by Cultivating Peace, Purpose, and Presence in Every Moment. And the program is found at consciousdyingcourse.com, consciousdyingcourse.com. It's a 7-week program, and Taryn is really going to take you on a journey of transforming your relationship with death, which could be for yourself, could be for your relationship with loved ones who are facing that, or just really as a part of your spiritual practice to really become skilled and open and whole in relationship to death. So, Taryn, I'd love for you to share a little bit about what your intentions are for this course, and then we'll go through the modules and give a preview of what's coming in each.
Thank you. Um, a foundational outcome, which happens very soon up in the first course, is that we become a community. There, who knows? Maybe there'll be 150 people in the class, and I will lead you through ways to interact with yourselves and to see other people commenting on what they're learning. So there's a feeling of we're in this together, when have we actually been together with a group of people who have decided that they want to know something about death and dying, and to be able to go through a 7-week program and deepen in their relationship to death and understanding how to support others when they're dying. So that's a primary, kind of that's the surrounding, supportive, secure, trusting, healing environment that we come into immediately. And we'll learn about the conscious dying principles and practices and what they mean to you. and which ones of them possibly you really want to have support to implement around your dying time. We'll look at the 5 domains of life, body, emotion, spirit, the intellect or legacy, which is what we'll focus on, and then the after death realm. And in each session, which is it's a 7-week course, in each of those sessions, you'll answer a body of questions pertaining to each domain of life. Like, what do your emotions mean to you? And so you'll answer those questions. And then when we come back together, we'll talk about that. And then you'll have an opportunity to, okay, I've learned a lot about my emotional being. And so now, if I had 3 months to live, what is my vision for my life in that domain? What's my current reality? And how can I move from where I am to where I want to be?
Beautiful. So module 1 of the program is called Embrace Death to Live Fully and Authentically.
So a couple of the things that we will touch on in that first module is, what are your fears and beliefs about death, and how to use really simple communication practices with your, in your own relationships to assure that your listening skills, move from wherever they are 50% effective to more closer to 100% effective. And when this may be something that you think, oh, everybody says communication skills, it's it's really important to refresh our communication skills, especially around listening for the dying time. Listening is the anchor. It's the anchor and the life raft of how to hold yourself in the presence of intense emotions and energy that you have never been in before. So we'll tap into some listening practices.
Module 2, create your healing space to support your end-of-life journey.
When we walk in a room as a healing individual, considering ourselves that, we are a healing agent, we do have healing energy. Our energy is meant to be a healing force on this earth. So when we walk into that room, wherever we are, wherever our person is, there's an aspect of looking around and observing and taking in, what is this environment like? And it could be this person in their home who has just had no help and things are all chaotic. And a healing environment in that particular situation could mean washing the dishes, picking up the newspapers, getting food. So creating a healing environment is very, very, very important. And that includes our own energy as a healing energy, so that the person can feel more, wow, this feels so much better.
Module 3, embrace your emotions to heal your heart and foster connection.
I would say that this is more, firstly, about the person who's in contact with the dying person. It's about the healing agent, the doula, the family member, the supportive person. It's like there are going to be probably intense emotions at some point in your service with this person. And for you to be able to hold that and to not, to be, clear that your service to this individual includes not tangling your own emotions and your own reactions and responses with the emotions of the individual. And that in and of itself can be very, very healing, just so you're not, having some even visual reaction to what's going on.
Module 4, reflect on life's mysteries to find meaning and peace in dying.
Some of the mysteries that people encounter that they just really don't know how to even name are things that happen very near the end of life with people, or a couple of weeks preceding the death, where the person who's dying actually sees people. This happens so frequently, and it's dismissed so frequently. And it's such a part of caregivers' lives in hospitals or nursing homes, assisted living. They see this all the time, caregivers, that this person is seeing their family, talking to their family, having, they'll call it a dream, or they're on too much medication, but being able to embrace that this mysterious thing that's going on is real for this person, and being able to talk to that person as if it's real. Tell me more. What did your mom have on? Did is Tell me more about what your little brother looks like right there, standing, coming to talk to you. Things like that.
Module 5, intentionally design your legacy to leave a meaningful impact on loved ones.
So there are people in the world whose family really never understood what was meaningful to them and what their real purpose was in life. The top level, of course, is what was our work? What did we do? And who we are from a doing being. And the next level, or the deeper levels, are related to the things that meant the most to me, that had nothing to do with my work, or that my work was the most important thing to me, because when I came onto this earth, I knew that I was supposed to do something, and this is what I did, and I want you to know that I did it, and it meant something to me. So having that kind of, written communication, or recorded communication for your family, and in addition to talking about it, is really, really important. I can imagine um, what I've done all my life for my what I do and what I have done for my professional career is just a mystery, and for my, most of my family, and for me to be able to like draw that down into the service and the level of healing that I was meant to do, my primary gift, you know, would be so meaningful to me, and probably really meaningful for them to get a deeper sense of who I was, And I mean, that's on the level about my work, but making that go down to the deeper levels of meaning would be an important thing for me,
Mm-hmm.
along with talking about the love for my dog and um,
Mm-hmm.
nature.
Module 6, plan your after-death care to ease the burden on loved ones.
So many people think that a living will, or fewer people may know about a document called the MOST, Medical Orders for Scope of Treatment. Those define what you want to have done medically, and those are really important. But some of the things that we'll discuss are branching out onto the limbs of the more contemporary, modern kinds of funerals and after death arrangements, in terms of, how you be with the body, and allow stillness to happen, and not to move the body so quickly, so that, everybody has time to let go in that period where, if people haven't grieved yet, they will grieve. And taking people away too fast rips everyone away from some of the most precious moments that you can have with your loved one after death.
And finally, Module 7, celebrate your transformation to carry this wisdom into your next chapter.
At the end, we'll all be able to say, what our main priority was and what our commitments are to bringing that into our three-dimensional, four, whatever, five-dimensional life, so that these are not just thoughts and wishes, but they manifest the things that we've talked about that we want, and give us the collegial support to name that and make a commitment out loud and do that. So it's kind of like the graduation ceremony where, we get to reveal our work.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for pulling this program together, Taryn. It's really clear just how much this is a natural expression of your whole life work and a really great service to everybody who wants to shift their relationship with death and for themselves, for their loved ones, and ultimately for our society. So again, the whole program is laid out at consciousdyingcourse.com. In addition to the 7 90-minute live sessions with Taryn that we just described, which will include time to ask your questions live, you're also going to get recordings of every session, both video and audio, as well as word-for-word transcripts. There'll be weekly exercises and practices for home. There's a Facebook community to support you and deepen your experience. And there's a number of extra great bonuses to really enhance the overall journey. There's a PDF workbook from Taryn called the Best 3 Months Workbook, harkening back to this refocusing your priorities on if you only had 3 months to live. You want to share a little bit more about what all you go into in that workbook?
Well, I just have to say that this workbook is awesome. It took a long time in my life for this to come together in a format that people can actually use to write your desires and wishes and your action steps. And so each domain of life, physical, spiritual, emotional, legacy, and after death, have their own questions, their reflection questions, and then the spaces in the book to say what your vision is for that domain of life, what your current reality is for that domain of life, and the action steps that you'll take. So it's a very practical workbook for a very spiritual and emotional journey.
That's great. There's also a second bonus. It's a PDF from Taryn called the Vision Map, as well as another PDF on the essential oil blends for end-of-life care. This is something we haven't mentioned, but very practical, and there's a lot of good science behind this, I understand, in terms of the sense and their ability to shift our awareness and brain states. And you want to share a little bit more about the essential oil blends for end-of-life care?
Yeah, thank you. A while back, early on in the work, one of my dearest friends is an essential oil. She creates cosmetics with organic essential oils, and I asked her to formulate essential oils for each domain of life. And so each one of the domains, physical, like I have said, physical, spiritual, emotional, legacy, and after death, have specific oils that attend to that particular domain of life. So that's one thing about the essential oils. The other thing is that there's a list of different types of essential oils, their definition, how to use them, and how to work with your own blends for self-care, for anointing, for, the anointing process. There's one in our formulary for after death care called Anoint and Release. And the essential oils were actually the formulas were created to work with the body after death or before death to allow this very intimate and important acknowledgement of the person's life and how they have given their hands, what their hands have done, what their mind has done, or how their legs have moved, how it just you can use the oils in so many different ways, and they're really precious to use with your person before and after death. And they're great for you to use as for self-care.
That's a great extra bonus, really complementary to everything you're teaching. And then I also want to draw attention to one final bonus that you get if you sign up by midnight tonight Pacific time, which is a great motivation to take the time to read through the page at consciousdyingcourse.com, tune in with yourself. And if you sign up today, you're going to get 5 additional interviews from our Beyond the Veil Summit, which is really the forefront of wisdom in this area. There's a lot of great components in that package of 5 bonus interviews that came from our Beyond the Veil Wisdom collection. So that's your bonus if you sign up by midnight. So again, there's more detail at consciousdyingcourse.com. There's also a lot of great testimonials from people who've worked with Taran. She's really devoted a lot of deep inner work to opening this pathway for people. You know, people say truly eye-opening, inspiring, deeply insightful, heartwarming. Taran was and is a godsend. So you're in really good hands, and you will, I think, get really deep benefits from this program if you choose to move forward. And it's all at consciousdyingcourse.com. So Taran, we're at the end of our time. Anything that's still on your heart you want to share with folks who are considering joining you for the Art of Conscious Dying?
Being with people in this work is the most precious thing in my life, and being, like connecting with people and sharing this is just gives me so much joy, and I look forward to having that joy for myself again and bringing some of that to you. So I look forward to seeing you with the course.
Well, thank you so much, Taran, and thank you all for joining, and may we all embrace dying as a portal to a new life. So thank you for helping illumine the pathway for us, Taran, and thank you all for joining. If you want to go further in the Art of Conscious Dying, it's all at consciousdyingcourse.com, and you'll get those 5 interviews if you sign up today. Many blessings.
Many blessings. Thank you.